Hello, everyone, and welcome to the IELTS preparation course. We at the Royal Academy here are happy to welcome you and wish you all the best, wish you success in the IELTS examination. And without any further ado, let's get started with today's introductory lesson. The lesson today is called Introduction to the IELTS exam. Now, many of you may be somewhat familiar with the structure of the test and how the exam is conducted and all that, but for some of you, this is a completely new experience, which is why we decided to include this lesson into your preparation so that for those of you to whom the test is a new experience, you get a chance to become a little bit more familiar with the exam before you actually start your preparation. So let's get started. A little bit about the exam first. First of all, test takers receive a score for each test component. Those are listening, reading, writing, and speaking. The individual scores are then averaged and rounded to produce your overall band score, right? So if you get 7 for listening, 7 for reading, 7 for writing, and 7 for speaking, obviously your overall band score will also be 7.0. Now, that being said, you should remember that there is no pass or fail in the IELTS exam. IELTS is actually scored on a 9-band scale with each band corresponding to a specified competence in English. Overall band scores are reported to the nearest half band. Do you want to know how? Well, the following rounding convention applies. If the average across the 4 skills ends in 0.25, then it is rounded to the next half band. For example, if your overall score will be exactly 6.25, then it will be rounded up to a 6.5. And if your overall score is, for example, 6.75, then it is going to be rounded up to the next whole band, 7.0. And that is how you get your score. That is how your score is counted in the IELTS examination. Now, here is the most interesting part. Let's talk about how IELTS exam is conducted, how many parts it consists of, how much time does it take to complete each part, and what kind of tasks do we need to expect to have in each part of the IELTS exam. Let's start with the listening part. Generally, what I want to highlight is that your listening, your reading, and your writing will all be conducted on the same day, and that day is considered to be your main test day. Your speaking, however, depending on your registration, may be the day before your before your main test day. It could be the day after your main test day, or it could be on the same day as your main test day, either before or after your main test. Now, when you register, you do have an option to choose when specifically you would like to do your speaking test. Obviously, either IDP or British Council, they leave the right to change your speaking test should there be a need to do so. But generally, in most cases, whenever you pick the time and whatever date and time you pick for your speaking test, that's when you will have your speaking test. A lot of candidates choose to have their speaking test on another day, so not on the same day as their test day, and I actually do support that approach. I do think that main test day with your listening, reading, and writing tests is already stressful enough. Although the last time that I took the test, I had all 4 on the same day. But to me, the reason was different because the test center was quite a distance for me and I kind of didn't want to go twice. So I decided to take all 4 parts on the same test day. But if I lived closer to the test center, I guess I would still choose to have my speaking on a different day than, the first 3 parts of the test. So let's focus a little bit on the main test day. So again, listening, reading, and writing. These parts always come in the same order, which means that the first part of the IELTS exam that you will have to deal with will be the listening part of the test. Listening usually takes about 40 minutes. Now, these days, you can take the IELTS exam There's like two different versions of it. The first is a more traditional, which is called paper-based, and the other one, which is a little bit more modern, and that is called computer-based IELTS. Now, if you take the paper-based, then your listening test will last 40 minutes because in the paper-based format of the IELTS listening, you will listen to the script, to the actual CD for 30 minutes, and then you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers from the question booklet to the answer sheet, right? But in the computer-based test, it's not 40 minutes, it's about 32 minutes because after the CD is over, after the 30 minutes of you listening to the script, to a tape script, then you will be given 2 minutes to quickly revise all your answers, to look through them and make any corrections that are necessary. So again, depending on the format of the test that you choose to do, you will have a different number of minutes given to you at the end of the listening test to quickly go through your answers and then submit your work. During the listening test, there will be different types of questions that you will have to deal with. Some of them are filling in the blanks, the little gaps in the sentence or a phrase that you have to fill in, then labeling a diagram, right? So when you have a picture of a coconut tree, for example, or a cocoa tree, and then you have like little lines indicating different parts of the tree, and then you have to label it by listening to the description of that same tree. So that question type is called labeling a diagram. Then you have multiple choice questions, questions with options to choose from. So ABC, ABCD sometimes, depending on the question. And then there are also different types of multiple choice questions, right? So there are different variations of it, and then statement completion. And obviously, these are not the only existing question types. These are just some given as examples for you to understand that you will deal with different types of questions in this specific part of the IELTS exam. Now, after the whole listening test is over, the next part that you're going to have is a reading part of the IELTS exam. The reading part of the IELTS exam lasts for exactly 1 hour. That is 60 minutes, okay? And during those 60 minutes, during the academic module, which 95% of people probably take the academic module, and then there's a small percentage of people who need to take general training module of the IELTS exam. If you're planning to move to an English-speaking country to study, and be in that academic environment, then of course you will need to take the academic module of the test. And in very rare cases, people are required to take the general training module. This is usually when people are planning to work or live in an English-speaking country. But of course, regardless of what your purpose is, you should make sure that you request the information from the country where you're planning to go, because it might differ, you never know, depending on the conditions and the peculiarities of your particular situation. So make sure that you request the full information and you know exactly which module of the IELTS exam you should be taking. Now, in the academic module, we get 3 passages: reading passage 1, reading passage 2, and then reading passage 3. There are also different types of questions. So fill in the blanks, multiple choice questions, true, false, not given, yes, no, not given, matching headings, and a lot more. Now, generally, what happens during the reading test is we are suggested to divide our time 20-20-20. I will talk about time division separately in the reading module itself, in the lessons dedicated to the reading module. The only thing I will say is that passages do progress in difficulty. So reading passage 1 is relatively easier to deal with, and the questions from reading passage 1 take less time, let's say, to answer them than, for example, questions from reading passage 3. So do consider that when you decide how to divide your time and how to deal with questions and everything. And the same, by the way, in the listening test. So there are 4 sections in the listening test: section 1, section 2, section 3, and section 4, each containing 10 questions, right? So listening section 1 is obviously easier to do than listening section 4, for example. So questions do progress in difficulty, and the level of language generally that you hear Also, progresses in difficulty as you go through the different sections of the listening test. Now, once the reading is over, after exactly 1 hour, just in a couple of minutes, your writing test will begin. Writing, just like reading, takes exactly 1 hour, so 60 minutes, and it consists of two tasks, right? So the academic module that we're looking at here has two tasks. Task one, which is describing a visual, and that visual could be anything. It could be a line graph, it could be a diagram, which shows you like a process, which shows you how coffee is made or how tea is made. Or it could be a map of, let's say, London, comparing the changes that the city has undergone over the last 20 or 30 or 50 years, right? And then based on that visual that you received in writing task one, you will then be required to describe that visual in no less than 150 words. Okay, so that's the requirement. And generally, you are advised to spend about 20 minutes on completing task one in the writing part of the IELTS exam. After that, we have got task two. And in task two, all you need to do basically is to write an essay. And when you write an essay, it's actually not that difficult. You get a topic, a general topic, and then there are 5 parts of, task two, not 5 parts, but like 5 types of task two. And for example, one of the 5 essay types is agree, disagree. So they give you a prompt, something like, children should not study at private schools. Do you agree or disagree? And then you have to write an essay based on that prompt that you've been given and based on your own, viewpoint, right? Or based on your own arguments and how you see the situation that is described in the task itself, right? And for task two, the minimum requirement in terms of the number of words that you're supposed to write is 250. So you can write more, but you should not write less, basically. Otherwise, you're going to, end up with a lower score. And that's that for task two. Then obviously, if you spend about 20 minutes on task one, then you spend about 40 minutes on task two and make sure you fulfill all the necessary requirements of the task. We will talk about the requirements of the task and, the things that you should do, the things that you shouldn't do to avoid losing marks in more detail in the lessons of the writing module themselves. So the lessons that are dedicated to improving your writing skills and generally that are from the writing module. Now, after your writing test is over, congratulations. That is the end of your main test day. And again, I do suggest to book your speaking test on a different day. I would personally prefer to have my speaking last. So I would first deal with the main part of the exam, the main test day, listening, reading, writing. Preferably, if you can, take a break of a day, right, in between, and then after 1 or 2 days, go and have your speaking test. The speaking test is actually very, very quick. It only takes 11 to 14 minutes. And I think this past years, the reports even say that it's shorter. So it's like 11 or 10 to 12 minutes or something like that. So the speaking test, like the time in the speaking test goes by very quickly. Trust me, you enter the test room being a little bit nervous and you think that, oh my God, for the next 15 minutes, I'm going to be questioned. My skills are going to be questioned. My level of English is going to be questioned. But it's actually pretty quick. Most students, after they have done the speaking test, they text me and they say, Miss Lazard, I was actually very surprised when the examiner said, that is the end of your speaking test. And I was like, what, already? So yeah, it does go by pretty quickly. Now, the speaking test has 3 parts to it, or 3 sections, whatever you like to call them. Section one of the speaking part is what we call introduction, right? And it contains very general questions like, what's your favorite animal? Do you have any hobbies? Do you like TV? Do you like watching TV? What kind of TV channels do you watch? How often do you go shopping? How do you spend your weekends? Do you like to plan your weekends in advance? What time do you wake up every day? Or tell me about your daily routine, right? So part one questions in the speaking part of the IELTS exam are generally very, very easy. And if you are struggling answering any questions from part one, that is a huge sign that perhaps you're lacking vocabulary, grammar, a lot of other different skills and everything. And it could actually be a little bit too early for your IELTS preparation, if you find questions from part one to be very, very difficult to answer. Ideally, even at the beginning of your IELTS preparation, you should find questions from part one of the speaking test easy to answer. You might struggle a little bit in part two, and you might struggle even a lot in part three, but part one questions should be easy for you. That's how you know that you are actually ready to start your IELTS preparation. So in part one, which lasts from 4 to 5 minutes, 4 to 5, not 45, right? So it lasts from 4 to 5 minutes. You get, a number of different questions on two, maybe three different topics, and that will complete speaking part one. After the speaking part one is over, then there is speaking part two, in which the examiner is going to give you a topic. So it's actually kind of the same, the speech that the examiner gives every time at the beginning of part two. So they say something like this. They say, I'm going to give it now in this part, I'm going to give you a topic and I would like you to talk about it for 1 to 2 minutes. Before you speak, you will have 1 minute to think about what you're going to say, and you can make some notes if you wish. Do you understand? So they make sure that you understand what you're required to do. And then they will read the topic from the card. So they will say, I would like you to describe a supermarket that you often go to, or something like that. Or I would like you to describe a city that you would like to visit. And then the cue card, the card with the topic itself, will have some bullet points on it. For example, if the topic is describe a city you would like to visit, then some bullet points could be like, where is the city located? Why do you want to visit it? Who would you like to visit it with? And, what makes the city so special for you? Okay, so this could be the prompts on the speaking card. And again, the examiner will give you 1 minute to prepare. In the speaking module, you will find a lesson. In the lessons that are dedicated to speaking part two, there will be a detailed explanation of exactly what you should be doing with that 1 minute of preparation that the examiner gives you. So I'm sure you'll go watch that and learn how to use that minute to the best of your ability. And then after that, after 1 minute of preparation is over, the examiner will ask you to speak for 1 to 2 minutes. Now, a lot of people don't understand that, I feel like, and they speak for less than 2 minutes. And of course, it also depends on your level, on your fluency, and, a bunch of other factors. But my best recommendation here is to speak for full 2 minutes. Now, you might ask, how am I supposed to know when it's been 2 minutes since the beginning of my speech? Because you don't generally have a watch with you or your phone during the speaking test. And there's actually a very easy way to tell when it has been 2 minutes since the start of your speech in part two. Very simple. Once you have spoken for 2 minutes already, the examiner will stop you, just because they have a limited time for each candidate and they cannot be sitting there and listening to you all day. So if you have hit the mark of 2 full minutes, the examiner will stop you, even if you are in the middle of a sentence. They'll be like, thank you, that's enough. So they will stop you, they will pause your speech, and that's how you know that you have spoken for full 2 minutes. And if you did that, then congratulations, because as a fluent English speaker, and of course, if you want to get a good score in the IELTS exam, you should be able to speak for 2 minutes. It's not that long. It's not a 5 minute or a 10 minute speech. It's actually just 2 minutes, and it also goes by pretty quickly. A lot of people are scared at first when they just start preparing for the speaking part of the IELTS exam. They're like, how am I supposed to give a monologue, or a lecture for 2 minutes, just on my own without the examiner asking any questions? And let me tell you, it's not that hard. With the right amount of practice, you will learn how to do that quickly and easily, and it will no longer be an issue. After speaking part two, there is obviously speaking part three. And just like in listening and in reading, the level of difficulty of your questions will progress with each section. So questions from part one are way easier to answer than questions from part three. Now, if part one and part two were completely about you, everything was about you, your experience, your opinions, etc. Now, part three is a little bit different. Of course, you will still be talking about how you see the things, right, and your perspective and everything, because that's, I guess, the only way for us to talk. But the thing about part three is that the questions in part three are no longer particularly about you, but more so about people and society in general. So questions in part three could say something like, why do people make friends? Or why do people need friends? Why do people want to be a part of society? Questions in part three could also encourage you to compare certain things now and certain things that happened in the past. For example, they could say, how did the way we make friends, how does the way we make friends today compare with how we used to make friends 50 years ago? And so here you will be forced to compare the methods or the approach that people usually take, again, to make friends today and how they used to do that half a century ago, right? Or they could also ask you to compare something today and how you think things will be happening or operating in the future, right? So one of the questions could be, do you think that AI could completely replace certain jobs in the future? And then you will be asked to basically predict, so make certain predictions and share your opinion on, based on what we're seeing, like the amount of change that we're seeing in the world today, right? And I could go on and on about, each part of the speaking test here, but since this is just an introductory lesson, let me keep this short. That completes the overview of the IELTS exam in a nutshell, right? This is what the test consists of, right? 4 sections: listening, reading, writing, speaking. Again, listening, reading, writing are what you will have on your main test, and then speaking on your main test day, and then you can have your speaking test on a different day, depending on what day you choose when you register for your IELTS exam. Let's move on. Now, check out this diagram. This little table here, it will show you exactly what level you need to have to get your desired score, okay? This is a CEFR, which stands for Common European Framework of Reference. And this is kind of like a scale that we as English teachers use to basically, identify someone's level of English, right? Or how we describe someone's level of English. So we've got basic users, independent users, and proficient users. Basic users are A1 and A2, so that would be your elementary and pre-intermediate levels of English. Then we have independent users at levels B1 and B2, so those are intermediate and upper intermediate levels. And then we have proficient users at levels C1 and C2, which would be C1 is advanced and C2 is proficiency. My level of English is C2, so I'm a proficient user. My personal IELTS is 8.5 out of 9.0. That is the highest score, right? So you can see here that, for example, to get a band 6, you need to be a B2 user, for example, right? Or to be to 6 or 6.5, right? You need to be a good B2 user. Or to get 7 or 7.5, you need to be a good C1 user, right? In order for you to get a C2, you need to have band 8.0 or band 9.0. And so just like that, you can basically ask yourself, which band score do I want to take? So band 5 and band 5.5, they correspond usually to a B1 level, so intermediate level. Very well, moving on. Another thing that I will highly, highly recommend you to do, and we will actually do this together a little bit as we go through our lessons, is to study the band descriptors before the exam for the writing and for the speaking parts of the IELTS exam. The way that listening and reading are assessed is easy, because in listening we have 40 questions, we give 40 answers, the computer checks our answers, and then out of 40, for example, if you get 30 correct answers, then your band is 7.0, yeah, or something like that. If you get 32 correct answers, then you get 7.5 or whatever. But then in writing, there are no questions, answers, basically. There are tasks. And in speaking, again, there are questions and there are answers, but there are no correct or wrong answers for the most part, if that makes any sense. There can only be relevant and irrelevant answers. So, for example, when the examiner asks me, what is your favorite color in the speaking test, there isn't a single correct answer for me to say because my favorite color could be any color in the world, or I could not have a favorite color, as a matter of fact, right? So that's why IELTS, as an exam, created band descriptors, or some people call these assessment criteria. These are these large tables that you see on the screen that examiners use when they assess your work, again, both in writing and in the speaking part of the IELTS exam. There is 3 different band descriptors, one for writing task 1, one for writing task 2, and then a separate one on the speaking part of the IELTS exam. And as you can see, this is a large table here with each score written on the left, and then a description of that score inside the table. And the table also showcases 4 criteria that this one, for example, says IELTS writing task 1 band descriptors. So this shows you exactly, for example, here at band 9, the things that you need to do to be able to get a band 9 in writing, in IELTS writing task 1. And I highly recommend that you study the band descriptors and then you follow whatever is written in the band descriptors for you to be able to get a good score, get a high score, not necessarily band 9, but the score that you desire. And you will, again, the lessons, writing lessons and speaking lessons will involve the studying and understanding of band descriptors a little bit, but I highly recommend that you get yourself familiar with, with the band descriptors in detail at home by yourself as well. So again, there's separate one on writing task 1, there is one on writing task 2, and there is one on the speaking part of the test. All the different band descriptors will be attached below in this lesson, so you will be able to download them in a PDF format, save them on your computer, on your laptop, on your iPad, whatever you're using, and then print them out if necessary. Now, just because this course is basically online does not mean that you should be dealing with all the materials electronically. If you're more of a person who likes to, read from paper or write something on paper, suit yourself and do whatever is working for you, as long as it gives you results, and as long as it helps you to understand the material and remember it. It doesn't matter how you work with it, and it doesn't matter whether you read from the screen of a computer or you decide to print it out and then highlight, underline, circle, or do whatever else necessary for you to really make sure that you remember the information. Now, I'm going to talk about 2 preparation necessities for this course. One thing I want to talk about is please, please, please make sure that you use English to English dictionary. For example, you could go to Google or Yandex search and you could write Cambridge Online Dictionary, and that will then give you at the very top, it will give you the link to the official online Cambridge Dictionary. It is completely free to use. Another one that you can use is Oxford Online Dictionary. I think both are equally well done, and they're high quality, top standard dictionaries. And most importantly, use the English to English version. So stop translating from English into your native language, whatever your native language is, whether it's Russian, Kazakh, Indian, Chinese, something else, doesn't matter. The less you have to go back to your language when you're dealing with English, the more your brain will learn to think in English. I hope that makes sense, right? So the less you translate, the less you, have to, again, remember, like, how do I say this in my language? Why would you do that? Don't think about your language at all when you're preparing to IELTS. Like, just limit yourself and go and completely dive into the English language. And one way to really help yourself with your IELTS preparation is, again, to stop translating everything from English to your native language and vice versa, and just start using an English to English dictionary. So, two preparation necessities that I said I was going to talk about. Number one, fully immerse yourself in the English language as much as possible in your current conditions. Sleep less if you have to, wake up an hour earlier, etc., if you have a bunch of other responsibilities. I understand that might be asking a little too much of you, but honestly, people always want, a magic pill. People think that just buying an IELTS preparation course is enough, and that just because they bought the course, they now automatically are entitled to a band 7.0 or a band 8.0. Unfortunately, that's not how it works, and you have to make an effort on your side, guys, to make sure that you improve your English and you prepare to the IELTS exam and you do the tasks and you do the homework and you practice and you learn vocabulary and you do all these things that you're supposed to be doing, because even the best teacher in the world cannot do them for you. Now, what do I mean by fully immersing yourself in the English language? It means that whatever you can do in English, do that in English. If you're currently watching any TV series or movies, get yourself a Netflix subscription and start watching movies in English. Please stop watching Turkish TV series, Russian TV series, or whatever else that, tickles your fancy, and watch something in English. Start watching American TV series more, start watching British TV series, whatever accent you like more. But make sure that if you're entertaining yourself, then you're doing that in English, okay? For listening to music, if you like to listen to music and you're listening to different songs, listen to different songs on a daily basis, also do that in English. Listen to, English performance. There are so many popular English songs nowadays that you can even use that to improve your level of English. Then news, weather forecasts, talk shows, right? Late night shows, whatever it is that you're consuming. Even if you are on Instagram or TikTok, search for English speaking creators, content creators. So start following accounts of people who create content and post content in English, right? Native English speakers. Social media is a great platform for you to learn English as well, not necessarily just for you to be, scrolling those reels or scrolling TikToks for no reason, basically, right? And just wasting your time. So if you are on social media a lot, at least put that into use and make sure you do that. Make sure that it benefits you. And one way to do that, again, is to, I'm not saying stop using Instagram and TikTok, although that could probably help you with your IELTS preparation. What I am saying is that if you're still on social media despite your IELTS preparation, then at least make sure that it's benefiting you with your current purpose, which is to pass the IELTS exam. And IELTS is an exam, guys, okay? IELTS is not just some little grammar test that you can write in 30 minutes and be done. IELTS is an exam, and altogether it takes more than 4 hours. So that is not even considering the waiting time, the everything, right? So make sure that you take it seriously. My best advice, if you want to avoid any disappointment, make sure you treat IELTS just like you would treat any other serious examination. The second thing is scheduling. Set aside time blocks on a daily basis that you are going to dedicate to IELTS preparation. Otherwise, it is very easy to get lost in a daily routine and spend very little time actually getting yourself ready for the exam. I am speaking from experience here. I have been teaching IELTS for more than 10 years now, and I've seen a lot of different people. Okay, I've seen many different people, and people do different things when they prepare to the IELTS exam. I've seen people who never did anything on their own but only worked during the lessons with me, and that is also understandable. People have different situations. However, I highly recommend that you do self-preparation outside of the lessons that you are going to watch during these IELTS preparation course. And I highly recommend that you, again, set aside small, at least time blocks, I don't know, 30 minutes, 1 hour every day, that you know during that 1 hour, I am going to do nothing but prepare to my IELTS exam. This is really, really important, okay? Everything that you will learn in this course, guys, it shouldn't stop there. You should then go ahead and put that into practice. Sorry, otherwise, it's nothing. Otherwise, it's just another video that you watched, and that's it. It's like, people watching podcasts on YouTube and then expecting to one day wake up rich. That's not how it works. Watching podcasts on YouTube about success and money and, whatever else, right? Self-development is great, but that is just step one, guys. That is just step one. After that, you have to go and implement. You have to go and put that into practice. You have to go and actually do something, take action, right? And this is something that a lot of people, I think, have a hard time understanding, and they just expect that, okay, I just enrolled into this course, I watched a bunch of videos, now give me results. No, no, that's not how it works. And if you think that's how it works, then you should take your pink glasses off. That's just not the reality, unfortunately. Okay, your goals. So goal number one for you during this IELTS preparation course should be to get familiar with the test format and necessary techniques, right? So what kind of techniques should I be able to do for me to work through the test quickly and efficiently and get the result that I want? Goal number two for you should be to identify your weak areas and work on them through comprehensive practice. How do I identify my weak areas, you ask? Well, you will be doing practice tests and you will be doing homework. And from there, your teacher, aka me or somebody else, will be able to see your weak areas and tell you exactly what kind of things you need to do, and will send you all the homework and the tasks that you need to do for you to be able to eliminate or get rid of your weak areas. So we'll be patching up whatever gaps you have in your knowledge. And then goal number three for you should be to get the score that you need. When people come, sometimes, not very often, but sometimes people come and I ask them like, what's the score? What's your desired score? What's the band that you want to achieve in IELTS? And they tell me like, I don't know, maybe a 7, maybe 8.5. And I'm like, do you even realize how much of a gap there is between a 7 and an 8.5? I don't think they do. That's why they say that huge of a range, right? So what you need to do is you need to decide exactly on the band that you want. Not something above 6, but specifically, I want a 6.5, or I want a 7.0, or I want a 7.5. That's it. No maybes, nowhere between, nowhere from to, no, exactly the score that you want. I want 5.5. I want a 6.0. That's it. Okay. I hope that is clear. And yeah, let's move on. And what I'm going to do in the next couple of slides is I'm going to share with you a little kind of tip that will help you, and the things that you can do on your own, again, for the purpose of your IELTS preparation, outside of the, lessons, video lessons that you will watch in this course. So let's get started with the listening section. In listening section 1, for example, one of the question types you will need to deal with is called note or form completion, and it looks exactly just like this. So it's in the form of notes, and there are some gaps that you have to fill in, right? So the thing that you should do is you make sure that you are familiar with all the question types and you practice them enough before you go and you take the exam. I think that's a very logical thing, but I still had to say that. So a listening super tip for you would be this. To really develop your listening skills and score highly on the IELTS exam, try doing the following exercise at home. It will boost your listening skills in no time. So step number one, you pick a video on YouTube in English. That should be a native speaker speaking, okay? Then step number two, you pick a small portion of that video, say 1 to 2 minutes, 2 minutes max. Don't need to pick a portion longer than that. Step number three then would be for you to take a pen and some paper, and as you listen to the selected part of the video, write down every word you hear. You may watch the video as many times as you need until the text from the video for the whole 2 minutes that you have selected will be ready. Okay. It's like creating subtitles yourself. It is such a powerful exercise and it will actually boost a lot of other skills for you as well. But it's exactly what you need to develop your listening skills. For example, if right now, if I sit you down here and I put on any like TV series in English, if you have a hard time watching without subtitles, it means your listening skills aren't that good. So again, do this exercise. This will help you a lot with your listening skills and will be a nice addition to everything else that you will be doing to prepare to the IELTS exam in this course. The next part is obviously reading. So one of the question types you will need to deal with in reading, for example, is called matching information to gaps. So they will say which paragraph contains the following information. And as you read each of these statements or each of these pieces of information, you should then accurately match each piece of information with the paragraph from the text where you read about that information, right? So again, make sure you're familiar with all the question types and you practice them enough before the exam. I cannot stress this enough. This is so important. Now, a reading super tip I will share with you to really develop your reading skills and score highly on the IELTS exam, try doing the following exercise at home. It will really boost your academic English vocabulary. Ooh, let's see what that is. Step number one, pick any official IELTS reading test. You can use Cambridge IELTS books for that. Step number two, start by reading passage one. Just read the text and ignore the questions for now. Okay, don't look at the questions yet, just read the text. Step number three, learn any new words from that text and write them down in a separate notebook. For example, when I was just starting my IELTS preparation, like a lot of years ago, like 12 years ago or 13 years ago, I would actually have multiple copybooks, right? And each copybook would be dedicated. For example, I had a vocabulary copybook, then I had like writing task one copybook, writing task two copybook or notebook or whatever. And I would have like a bunch of them and each one was dedicated to a specific thing about the IELTS exam. But anyway, so you learn any new words from the text and you write them down in a separate notebook that you will from now on dedicate to learning new vocabulary about the IELTS exam. Then this should be your main source of vocabulary during IELTS preparation. Most students search for vocabulary sets on the internet or they just, I don't know, from different books, they learn a bunch of advanced expressions, etc. And they just end up learning so many unnecessary words. Trust me, this is the best thing you can do in terms of improving your vocabulary for the IELTS exam in general. Okay, so do what is said on this slide, and trust me, your vocabulary should be good. Doesn't matter which score you want to get in the IELTS exam. Now the next part is writing, and one of the question types you will need to deal with in writing task one is called processes. Processes generally show us how something is done or how something is made, okay? So make sure you're familiar with all writing task one and writing task two question types, and you practice them enough, obviously, before you sit the exam. And a writing super tip I want to share with you is this. To really develop your writing skills and score highly on the IELTS exam, try doing the following exercise at home. It will build your writing skills and provide you with the necessary vocabulary. Step number one, to understand how to approach writing tasks correctly on the exam, study the sample responses written for a band 7 or higher. Step number two, Analyze the format and the phrases used in the samples. Write them down in a separate notebook for writing. Again, just like I showed you now, you should have a separate notebook or a separate copybook dedicated to writing task one. Then you should have a separate one dedicated to writing task two. Okay. And so all the information that you learn, write it down in those copybooks because that will help you so much in keeping all the information that you will later need to revise, when you have a couple days left before the exam. And you do that. And then step number three is good samples can be taken from decent IELTS preparation books. For example, IELTS Advantage Writing Skills or those same IELTS Cambridge editions. They usually at the very end of the book, they have sample answers and they also indicate the band score that was given to the candidate for the response. Okay. So search for band 7 or higher. The last part of your IELTS test is speaking. So one of the question types you will need to deal with in speaking is called a monologue in part 2 of the test. And it looks exactly just like this. For example, describe a car journey you made that took longer than expected. You should say where you were going, who you were with, how you felt during the journey, and explain why this car journey took longer than expected. Now, to really develop your speaking skills and score highly on the IELTS exam, you should try doing this at home. It will boost your speaking skills and your pronunciation like never before, trust me. Step number 1, search online for the shadowing technique. Really read about it, watch videos on YouTube about it if you need, but do whatever is necessary to really understand how a shadowing technique works. Number 2, read about how it's done and select a speaker or speakers you're going to shadow at home. Ideally, this person should have the accent you want to have when you speak English. For example, the British accent. Step number 3, do the shadowing technique 3 times a week for at least 1 month, and the results will surprise you a lot. Trust me, I have done the shadowing technique in the past, which is why I have a very good accent when I speak English. A lot of people tell me this is not me bragging or anything, but whenever I work with like American people or British people or any other native English speaker, they usually tell me that like if I didn't know that you were from Kazakhstan, I would have a hard time guessing your original country because your English accent is just so clean and it's so good and it's just a pleasure to listen to you speak English. So if you really want to improve your pronunciation and your speaking skills as well, try the shadowing technique at home. And finally, track your progress. Take a practice test every 2 weeks on our website during this IELTS preparation course to make sure that you are on the right track to getting the score that you want. Because sometimes, despite all the hard work that you're doing, you might not be progressing, you might not be moving forward, and it can happen for multiple reasons, but of course every situation is different, right? So I can't really tell you now what will be in your situation and whether or how quickly you will be progressing. So we encourage you to take a full IELTS practice test every 2 weeks, and we allocate all the resources and you will have everything that you need, so you don't need to search for anything. Just make sure you can allocate the time necessary to write a full practice test, right, under examination conditions every 2 weeks. And it is advised generally to prep for the IELTS exam for at least 2 months or 8 weeks, which is exactly how long our course is. The course will last for 8 weeks, for full 2 months, and you will have Zoom sessions with me where we will have these Q&A sessions, and you can ask me any question about the exam, anything that is stressing you out, anything about the exam that you still don't feel like you understand fully, and we will then address all your questions and all your concerns there. The average good score usually for university entry is 7.0, so that's generally what people aim to get. But again, your score should be based on the requirements of your university or whatever it is that you're going. And the time recommended for self-study every day, and I really went ahead here and I said 2 hours. Of course, I understand that not every single person can spend 2 hours, preparing for the IELTS exam every single day. But this is my honest recommendation. IELTS is an exam. Again, I will say this again, and some people will disagree with me or think that that I think too highly of an IELTS exam. But at the end of the day, it's still an exam. It's not just a small grammar test of 15 questions. It's a 4 hour examination that requires a lot of preparation and hard work and dedication from your side. So this completes our introduction to the IELTS exam lesson. I hope that you enjoyed it and you made some notes. You can watch this lesson again if necessary, as many times as you want, as a matter of fact. And yeah, please follow the instructions below this video, and I wish you all the best, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.